I'm Jeremy Thake, VP of Product Technology here at Hyperfish. Today I wanted to share with you some thoughts on what I think about this comparison that I've blogged about around groups, Yammer, SharePoint, and Microsoft Teams inside the Office 365 ecosystem. It's caused a little bit of kind of like commenting from the various different champions from each of those different product areas that kind of push that as their way of thinking about collaboration within organizations. Now, to start with, let's think about how Microsoft kind of talks about those four products. Now, I particularly wanted to pick on one thing that came up in the comments, which was around, groups are core to everything in Office 365 now. You see Christoph Eisinger from Microsoft, who's in the engineering team now, he moved from marketing, talking on Twitter and presenting a lot of conferences on webinars about what Office 365 groups is. That core tenant essentially is really, when I go create an Office 365 group, it's creating an underlying Active Directory group inside of Azure. And then it's provisioning a bunch of different product technologies on top of it, whether it be things like a plan inside of Planner, whether it be an events calendar within inside of Exchange, or a OneDrive for Business container, which essentially has SharePoint in it as well as the groups conversations that exist inside of Outlook. Now, when I talk about this collaborating aspect, I'm not really talking about the core component of Office 365 groups, because that's really relevant now to everything. We had the recent announcement around Yammer saying that now when you create an Office 365 group, you can have Yammer conversations as one of those products that lights up. And Teams is actually building Office 365 groups as well. So when I talk about groups from a collaboration perspective, I'm really talking about groups within Outlook, the email conversations that are happening. And so Microsoft's kind of positioning around groups in Outlook is that if your organization is kind of comfortable with email conversations already, which most organizations are, then groups in Outlook are going to be the most easy way to kind of get them collaborating if they're not already using distribution lists. The benefit of groups in Outlook is that you also get all those other products that can snap into it that I've mentioned. Now, the other alternative is Microsoft Teams, which is a newly announced product, was available in November in preview and has been announced that it will be generally available by the end of Q1 of this year, 2017. Now, with Microsoft Teams, it's more of a chat-based approach, which you'll be familiar with if you've used Skype for Business, to kind of IM one individual or multiple individuals at once, and everyone kind of posts and replies, and it's kind of this threaded conversation that happens around that particular topic. So Teams is great if you're already used to using Skype for Business, or maybe things like Google Chat, or even back in the day with AOL, ICQ type conversations. That's really kind of that post reply in that kind of order. Now, Microsoft Teams has been compared to as a Slack competitor, and so that's really where they're treating it. And they're talking about high velocity teams. So whereas kind of groups in Outlook is email, which you don't expect emails to be instantly replied to, with Microsoft Teams, because it's similar to Skype for Business, they're saying that that's high velocity, where if you post there, you really do expect responses to happen quickly. Now, this is typically and used very powerfully by development teams that kind of maybe in the same room, headphones on, they're coding away, and they want to kind of ask questions rather than interrupting them, or maybe they're remote. They can do these things by just kind of posting, and chat windows come up. Probably more likely to get a response out of someone in a developer role via that kind of communication channel they are groups in Outlook. Now, the third way with Yammer is essentially that when Yammer kind of communicates, Microsoft's positioning is that because Yammer is available publicly to everyone in the organization, this is really where company-wide communications are posted, and then anyone in the company can kind of collaborate and ask questions and provide feedback. With Microsoft Teams and groups in Outlook, those two ones really is about you create your group or you create your team, and you have to either voluntarily add yourself into those particular groups or someone invites you to it. With Yammer, they do have a notion of a Yammer group, which basically gives you the similar thing there. But I think the difference I would say in between groups in Outlook and Teams and Yammer is that Yammer is much more like the enterprise social network play. It's essentially a Facebook clone built for an organization. It feels like a Facebook post when you post it, and you can have the comments and the likes and so forth. You can embed content in there very easily, and that's really where the power of Yammer is. And Microsoft say that, if companies are familiar with Facebook and they want to kind of take that kind of energy and bring that into the organization, that Yammer is the right way to do that. And then lastly, with SharePoint, I feel like the collaboration there when we're working with teams is not really around conversations, but it's more around documents. And SharePoint kind of has to rely on either Yammer, Teams, or Groups in Outlook as the way you would have the conversations, but from a document-centric view or maybe a list-centric view inside of SharePoint team sites that you can create and invite members or kind of nominate to be part of the membership of that group. So there's 4 main areas that you can do with inside of Office 365 in terms of collaborating in your team, and they all have their own centric ways of doing it. So just to recap, Groups in Outlook is really about that email-centric way of doing things and never leaving Outlook to do it, really. Although you can jump into kind of the products that snap into it. But the priority there is email-centric conversations that people can get back to and see without having to be on the initial thread and people reminding to reply tos and so forth. Microsoft Teams is much more of a real-time, high-velocity kind of communication that goes on within an organization. And people that are comfortable with Skype for Business and Slack are going to kind of probably want to sit there. Yammer is definitely the kind of the social network of the organization. People that are comfortable with LinkedIn and Facebook will find it very easy to kind of build up and spin up things inside of there. And that's very much, that way of socially chatting and conversations, slightly different from that real-time high velocity you get with Teams, very different from Outlook. And then SharePoint is going to be more of a document-centric world of thinking about how you collaborate in a team and leveraging some of those other communication channels as well. So in the subsequent short videos, I'm going to kind of break into each of those 4 products and give you a little bit more detail about the pros, the cons, and some of the big things to look out for if you're going to try and deploy these into your organization.